All right, welcome to another episode of NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we are talking about the Buffalo Bills, and I am joined by Michael Koonce, host of the Notebook podcast and contributor to BuffalowDown. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for having me. I couldn't pass up this opportunity.
Anytime, anytime. Well, when I saw that you host the Notebook podcast, I thought there might be some crying involved, and I I apologize, but I'm going to have to revisit this. What are your thoughts? Are there still some tears from that playoff loss to the Chiefs? I mean, has it kind of sunk in, or tell me about that?
Listen, I was really hurt that the Bills lost that game because
Mhm.
Josh Allen went down the field and won it twice.
He
If
did.
you look at that, he led scoring drives. I remember sitting right here where I am now in my garage thinking if there's anybody that can do it, it's Josh Allen because he proved it
Mhm.
time and time again. As far as the hurt, it was so painful that they weren't able to close it out with simply 13 seconds left. But what's overshadowed most of the time when we get to talking about the 13 seconds is how well Josh Allen played that
Mhm.
game and the week before. He was on a tear the entire postseason. And I think what really hurts the most is that losing that game, I believe, cost them a shot at playing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So you think they would have beaten the Bengals then?
I absolutely think
Mhm.
so. Buffalo's defense was tops in the league.
Mhm.
Um, the Bengals did have some talent with Chase and Burrow, but there was no way that the Bengals were going to come into Orchard Park and outplay the Bills with with the stakes.
Now, this there's a little bit of time that's kind of passed. I mean, are you able to kind of look back and separate, just the frustration and hurt of that day and just realize how great of a game that was, though?
The game was amazing. It was back and forth. The only downfall of the game, in my opinion, is that I had a dog in the fight.
Hmm.
That's really it. I
Yeah.
didn't have the chance to enjoy it like the rest of the people who watched it or like the national media who were drooling on it the next morning because I was upset. I wanted my Buffalo Bills to win, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do it.
Well, as someone who grew up in the '90s and watched the Bills, go to all those Super Bowls, they are a team that I've wanted to see break through, and I feel like last year happened, and before our eyes Josh Allen kind of became that guy. So
Yeah.
what are you kind of looking for kind of going into this season in 2022 as far as just him kind of continue to take more steps toward being the guy?
Yeah. So when Josh Allen was drafted, I immediately felt like he was the guy. Now, obviously, he had some troubles in his first season where he wasn't very accurate on the short throws. He also got hurt at the point of the season where he was playing pretty well. But when he came back after that injury, he was a different football player. I think the time off really allowed him to understand his role in that Buffalo Bills offense that season. And then going into year two in 2019, where he led the Bills to the postseason, I think it started clicking even more. We can see his natural progression on the football field by increases in his mechanics, the increasing in his accuracy. He's been able to improve year after year after year, and so going into this year, I'm expecting him once again to be top five in the MVP conversation. I'm expecting him to lead the Bills to the postseason, and I'm expecting him to have another MVP caliber season for the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely, and he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he can do his part. But my question then is, on that loss, is that more on the defense or is it more on the running game?
When the Bills lost to the Chiefs, I think that that's on the coaches.
Mm,
And
hmm.
the reason I feel that way, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tyler Dunn, but he does a lot of national reporting for the National Football League. And what he recently reported is that there was a rift between Sean McDermott and Brian Dable, the Bills' offensive coordinator. And one of the things that he mentioned was that McDermott wanted the team to run the ball. And so if you go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game where Buffalo was down badly in the first half, it was at that point of the season when they came back in the second half, they were a completely different team throughout the rest of the season. And so what I believe happened during that point is Sean McDermott handed Brian Dable the reins and said, do whatever you have to do to get us to win football games, because they didn't have a lot of chances left, excuse me, at that point until they were facing elimination. So they had to win those games. And so I can't blame the game on the running backs or the running game. I have to blame it. It's on the coach. We had 13 seconds left. And one of the things that Tyler Dunn also said is that the special teams coach for Buffalo, he stepped down after the game. And the reason why we were hearing is because he told Tyler Bass to pooch kick it. But he was overruled by Sean McDermott saying to kick it deep. So if you can look at Tyler Dunn, I'm not sure what his Twitter name, maybe you can post it up there, but he does outstanding work. He's also a Buffalo native, and the insight that he has into that really convinced me that I can't put this on anyone else other than the coaches.
Yeah, it's that's so interesting. So I am a Bears fan, and we kind of went through that with the cycle, of hiring coaches, and the hot names were Brian Dable, but also Leslie Frazier, and it was just it was kind of tough to kind of think of Leslie Frazier, being just what happened with the Bills defense there. I mean, he would have been a safe choice, I think, for the Bears. I didn't necessarily want Brian Dable, because we had done the offensive guru before, and you always wonder how much is on the player and how much is on the offensive coordinator.
Right. So normally my preference is certainly going to be an offensive guy. And that's because the name of the game is scoring points. And you want a lot of that onus to be on the guy making the decisions, not, you don't really want the onus being on your OC and the head coach. So let me just say this, and I wrote a piece about this at BuffalowDown.com. I wrote about how I believe Sean McDermott was holding Brian Dable back. And the reason I felt that way is because he wasn't being aggressive. He was punting the ball in plus territory to the other team, where he could have given Brian Dable a chance to call a play to put the Bills in a better position to win the ball game. And so I felt like by him being so conservative, he didn't allow Dable to really tap into his bag to pull out the plays that would make the Bills offense successful. Now, if you're watching that Kansas City game, on the first drive, they were going for it on fourth down because it was do or die at that point. And so I say that because we can't really be upset at Brian Dable if our head coach is telling us to punt the ball. So I feel like, with me personally, if I'm going for a guy, yeah, Leslie Frazier is good. He's been a solid coach. I think he probably deserves another chance in the league, but he's not going to coach your quarterback. He's not going to coach your offense, and that's how you win in this league.
Well, yeah, this is so interesting. So, now with Brian Dable gone, what are your expectations with the new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, and will the offense maybe possibly take a step back then if it is kind of relying on Sean McDermott more?
So that's the thing, and I was thinking about this earlier today. I believe that the Bills are going to employ a 2 tight end set more often than they've done. And the reason I feel that way is because they don't really have more than Jamison Crowder at the third receiver, but they have Dawson Knox and they have O.J. Howard, who I believe is going to play on the salary that he has because he's basically taking a prove-it deal. So with those two positions that we can obviously see, we're not into the draft yet. We don't really know what they're going to show on the field, but just based off how they're built today, I believe they're going to employ more of a 2 tight end set, which means I think that Sean McDermott will have his finger more on the offensive coordinator, right? And so what I believe is going to happen is they're going to run the ball a lot more, which I don't want to see. I don't want to see them take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. but I don't think that they're going to be as successful running the ball. As far as yards per carry, I don't know if they were 11th in the league last season. They might run the ball 500 times in 2022 and average less yards per carry. So I don't know Ken Dorsey personally, but I do feel like he's a great OC. He'll be a great OC. He helped Cam Newton win the NFL MVP in 2015. And then, like we said, the last 2 years, he's had Josh Allen in the top 5 in that race. So if he can come in and call the plays that he should call in the right positions, if he's going to employ the 2 tight end set, I just hope that he doesn't run the ball as often as the head coach which could probably create more of a rift in Orchard Park.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, who is the guy who can do that, who's proven that he can just drive, the field and just take the team on his back and really, will them to victory. Unfortunately, other things happen. You want to, try to put the ball in his hands as much as possible, but you also do need, just that variety in the offense and kind of just keeping the defense honest. So my question then to you is, how do the Bills solve the running game?
I think that they can solve the running game by throwing more short passes, and that'll help set it up. They have the linemen right now on their team that are athletic enough to get out in front of the runner and wreak havoc, and seriously wreak havoc. If Josh Allen can drop back and get the ball out of his hands quickly, I think that'll give the offensive line time to set up, and they might not be blocking as long. If he has the time back there, it's easy for him to hand the ball off, which is what they did in the second half at Tampa Bay. He also was able to use his legs a lot too, because the rushing lanes were wide open. So I think that if the Bills can employ more of a short, quick passing game, that'll help them eliminate a lot of the sacks that Allen took. It'll help the offensive line, and it'll also improve the run game.
Yeah, and so do you see them maybe in the draft having to pick a running back up, or do they have the running backs that are necessary to kind of do what they need to do?
Yeah, I think I've seen running backs mocked to Buffalo since all this process started. I've seen Breece Hall. I've watched his highlight tape over and over and over, and I think his skill set, his ability to carry an offense, to carry the load like he did at Iowa State, is the missing piece to the Bills' offense. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, we're not just talking about swing routes or screens. We're talking about deep balls out of the backfield, and he's got the speed that'll scare your defenders, and that's what the Buffalo Bills need to do. They need to get faster on the offensive side of the ball. However, the Bills are in a very unique position this season. They were in it somewhat last year too. They have a roster that's pretty deep other than their second corner. They lost Levi Wallace to free agency to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so there's somewhat of a vacancy on the other side of Tre'Davious White. I think that the Bills can go. I think that the Bills can be aggressive and even move up in the draft, because they're so deep that they won't have all those players make their roster. So I could see them trading later picks to move up and get Jameson Williams, who I've also seen mocked to Buffalo, to add to their weapons on offense. They could stay put and pick Breece Hall if he's still there. They could take an offensive lineman at 25 if they want. They could make their pick at 25 and then trade back into the first round with all of their draft capital and kind of double up that way. So they have a lot of different moves that they can make. And I think this year the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team, and it's really loaded, and it's only kind of, added to that with the addition of Von Miller. I mean, what was that like to see a player of that caliber make that decision? And even watching the video, his dad told him to choose the Bills.
Yes, I watched that video a couple times because there's really not a lot of football content other than you that I'm really enjoying. But I watched that vlog, and the most interesting part of the vlog was his father, like you said, and he said Buffalo's got a top scoring offense. They have a number one defense, and the only thing that they're missing is you. And that's how I felt. The Bills have been chasing an elite pass rusher for the past couple of seasons. They went and they did it in the draft with Greg Rousseau and Boogie Basham. They tried to bolster their defensive line, but the results were the same. Patrick Mahomes was deadly when he took off to run the ball. And so adding somebody like Von Miller, who I don't think really needs to have an impact throughout the regular season, I think he's added to the Buffalo Bills to give them that extra push to allow them to reach a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you bring in someone who's won a Super Bowl, won multiple Super Bowls. I mean, that really kind of just adds that edge there to help a team get over the hump.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that the Bills are smart by doing what they did. Essentially, he got a 3-year deal. It looked like a lot of money, but that's what the agents certainly want to do. But he's a blue chip guy. And there's not a lot of those pieces on Buffalo's roster. You got Josh Allen, you have Stefon Diggs, Trey White, and I mean, we can argue about the safeties. Jordan Porter was all pro. So was Michael Hyde, first and second team. But I mean, that's it. We need a blue chip. The Bills need a blue chip at linebacker. They need a blue chip on the edge like they have now. And I also think they can use a stud at the running back position.
So I am an Iowa guy, and obviously Micah Hyde, he's my guy.
Yes.
But also I had a question about, I mean, AJ or Epenesa. I mean, what are you hearing about him? I mean, will he have an expanded role? I mean, he obviously dominated Iowa. It looks like he is behind Rousseau. I mean, are they going to give him kind of more in the defense?
I don't believe Epenesa is going to have an expanded role, but I do believe he will have a lot more opportunity. Last year, he was inactive a lot. The Bills were working on their rotation. But one thing that's going to work in his favor is how often they rotate guys in and out of that defensive front. I can't see Von Miller playing 70 plays. I don't see Greg Rousseau playing 70 plays. He's going to get his shot because they lost a couple of pieces in free agency. They also brought back Shaq Lawson. So they kind of rebuilt some of the items that they lost. But what they have in Epenesa, he will have more of an opportunity. I'm just not sure if his role is going to be increased.
Yeah, it's, I mean, interesting. I mean, you have these players who just like studs in college, and they come, maybe to teams that are, not as good, and they're able to kind of get in there. But you look at the Bills, and when you have someone who's talented like that and can be a role player, I think that's huge as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's depth. That's what you need on your roster to win a Super Bowl. And who's to say he's not going to have 15 sacks this season and become an all-pro player where they can't take him off the field? I think that's the beauty of the National Football League. He will have a larger opportunity, which some guys, let's be honest, some guys don't even get the opportunity as talented as they are. He was inactive, like I said, for many of the games. Imagine if he didn't handle that well. Imagine if he had a poor attitude. He may have not been handed this opportunity that he has by even earning an expanded role.
Well, speaking of opportunities, when you look at the Bills season, what are your expectations?
This is going to sound a little conceited.
Mm-hmm.
I rehearsed this over and over in my head. No, but the Bills are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. It's Super Bowl or bust for the home team. They have a pretty soft division, as the Patriots experienced over the last 20 years, where the other teams, for whatever reason, just can't seem to get their quarterback right, is what we're dealing with in the AFC East. And then there's parity around the conference. The AFC West is going to eat itself. All three of the top three teams in that division, their win total was over 10 or more. I mean, the AFC North also has a lot of parity with Lamar Jackson returning from injury, Joe Burrow adding to the season that he had last year. I don't know if Pittsburgh is going to be able to compete in that division, but Cleveland added Deshaun Watson, and their win total was above 10. So it's going to be tough for other teams to leapfrog the Buffalo Bills when they'll be playing tougher quarterbacks for sure than they played last season. But if they can get to 12 or 13 wins, I think that guarantees them a 1 seed heading into the postseason.
Yeah, and you look at 2021, and that's what it was supposed to be like. They were supposed to be the number 1 seed. I mean, what is different from 2022 or from 2021, I guess, to 2022?
Yeah, I think what's going to be different is they know what it felt like last year. This team is bringing back a lot of their core guys, which you usually don't see around the NFL. Josh Allen knows what it felt like to score on 7 straight drives against New England, to win the game twice in Kansas City, and not have a chance to touch the ball in overtime and fall short. They all know what it feels like. And I believe that where they slipped up last year, where they failed, is they did not win the games they were supposed to win. They lost to the Steelers in week 1. They lost to Jacksonville. I mean, they should have won Tampa. They had the ball in overtime in Tampa. If we give the Bills just 3 more wins, they're the 1 seed. And not to mention, they were 0-5 in 1-score games. I think a little bit of that is luck, but when you have a head coach who's constantly being so conservative, I think you're cheated out of extra opportunities where you can go ahead and win some of those games where you were 0-5 in 1 score. So I'm looking forward to this season. As you could probably tell, I'm super excited to see Josh Allen in that offense take the field one more time. And it's Super Bowl or bust for 2022.
So it sounds like you're excited for Josh Allen, the players, but it doesn't really sound like you're excited for Sean McDermott. I mean, at what point would you be able to trust him?
I wrote about this all last season because it was sticking out like a sore thumb. The one thing, and a lot of people disagree with this, but the one thing that really discourages me about Sean McDermott, I'm not calling for his job, but what he does that discourages me is he's inconsistent. We know coaches like Riverboat Ron. We call him Riverboat Ron because he's aggressive. He has an identity. There are points. Now, some people will say, well, hey, it may not be good to have an identity like that because you can fool the other team. No, either you're aggressive or you're not. And he likes to middle that aspect so very often that it can be frustrating watching your team punt the ball on 4th and 1 or kick field goals, which is how they lost to Kansas City the year before last year. They were settling for field goals. So I think what I need to see out of Sean McDermott to trust him is I need to see some sort of consistency in the way he's making his decisions. If I can say, well, I would have went for that, why isn't he going for that? What does the math tell us about that situation? He's up and down the board on those decisions. So we need to see some consistency out of Sean McDermott, and hopefully he's the guy to bring home the Lombardi to Buffalo, New York.
If the Bills, fail in the next couple of years, he's got to be gone, right?
I think so. I think him making the playoffs in his first year after a 17-year drought probably earned him a statue. It probably earned him a second contract, no matter what the Bills had done between 17 and right now. But the way he has them performing up to this point, the only way I think Sean McDermott is going to lose his job is if Josh Allen regresses.
Mm-hmm.
If he continues or if he begins to take steps back and he's not playing up to the level that he needs to be playing up, sure, he can fire his offensive coordinator, but he can only do that so many times. So if Josh Allen starts to regress, McDermott wouldn't even have this job if Allen wasn't as good as it turned out to be. So if Allen starts to regress, I believe that Sean McDermott's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's so interesting how quarterbacks can make the coach, and
Yes.
you see that in Green Bay.
Yes.
You don't really know how good he is as a coach because of Aaron Rodgers. You just
That's
don't
right.
know that, and it's so interesting. Also, when you look at quarterbacks, it's really important to have a number one wide receiver, one of those
Yeah.
ones that
Oh yeah.
really going to be there, and it's no secret that Stefon Diggs was huge for Josh Allen. What are your thoughts on his contract extension? And were you surprised now to have a receiver of his caliber and a quarterback to just really choose Buffalo?
I love the Stefon Diggs contract extension. Before he was given the extension, I was a little nervous because I didn't know if Buffalo was going to be able to make it fit. This is after Von Miller. And so we were already kind of up against the cap. I just had no idea that they were going to be able to make it fit. But I do believe that they should have signed him or extended him last year after he had that Pro Bowl season where he led the league in receptions and receiving yards. He earned his extension then. And what that would have done is it may have saved the Bills millions of dollars because now he's making upwards of $24 million. I think his number is 26 for the next few years. And Tyreek Hill is making $30 million. When a guy like that resets the market, you're going to see other players who deserve to be paid like that begin to question, or you'll hear it in the media. Their agents are going to be on the phone with that general manager saying, "Hey, my guy, look what my guy did for you. He scored 10 touchdowns last year and 8 touchdowns the year before that." So you got to pay Diggs his money. I like that he's tied with Josh Allen for the very near future. It looks like him and Allen will probably get old together. Certainly Diggs will grow old in Buffalo. But I still think the way that he plays, his skill set can be productive into his 30s, like a Marvin Harrison. The way that he was able to elude defenders, he didn't take a lot of hits. He was sure-handed, scored touchdowns, and he also was playing with Peyton Manning. I think that's what I see in Stefon Diggs. So I love the extension. I'm excited to have him in Buffalo, and I can't wait to see him on the field again either.
It's so interesting kind of how the narrative can change once you have a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber as well. I mean, I was watching the replay of the Bills and Patriots game, and doing the behind the scenes, and I forgot that Terrell Owens was a Bill,
That's right.
and they had brought him in, and obviously he wasn't there all that long, and then how Antonio Brown turned down the Bills, so it's really kind of flipped. The perception of the Bills having Josh Allen, hasn't it?
Oh, certainly. And you even hear the Von Miller saying in his vlog, he said, "Man, I would love to play with you, man. You're a creature." Like, who did you hear people saying that about other than giant quarterbacks like Josh Allen? I mean, he's a monster. He can kill you in so many different ways, and he's been improving every single year. So yes, the narrative has changed. When you get a quarterback like Josh Allen, who's proven himself up to this point in the league, Von Miller wants to play with him. Stefon Diggs will try it out. He was when Stefon Diggs came over, Allen went through the roof. So I love the signing. Yes, the narrative has changed in Buffalo. We're no longer the bottom feeders of the league. Players want to play with us, and hopefully we get to sign a couple more weapons.
Well, and we talked about quarterbacks, and obviously Josh Allen is the top of the division. Where do the other quarterbacks in the division rank, in your opinion?
So if I was going to rank these quarterbacks, I have to start from the bottom, number
Mhm.
four, to the top, and the quarterback that I would have to rank at the bottom is Zach Wilson,
Mhm.
and that's mainly because he's the least experienced. There's no surprises on this list. He's the least experienced. He has the most to prove. He doesn't have a lot of talent on his roster, and he doesn't have any of the physical skill set that these other quarterbacks have, especially when you compare him to Josh Allen. So give me Zach Wilson at number four. My third quarterback is Tua. Tua
Mm-hmm.
Tagovailoa. He's got a lot more weapons this season to play with, but he's going to have to prove it. He's really going to have to take a leap. He also doesn't have any of the physical traits that somebody like Josh Allen has. He doesn't have a big arm. He's not going to kill you with his legs consistently. He's not going to run you over. He got knocked out of the Bills game last year pretty early in that matchup because he wasn't able to withstand a pass rush or take a hit. And so give me Tua Tagovailoa at number 3. And then, of course, the person that we have left is Mac Jones. And I honestly believe that he's only here by default because the other
Mm-hmm.
two guys are smaller. They don't have as big an arm, and they're not playing with Bill Belichick. And so uh, I think Mac Jones is going to need some weapons this year. They traded for Devontae Parker, but they got to give him more than that. And he played pretty well against Buffalo when the Bills scored 7 straight touchdowns, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So I have to take Mac Jones at number 2. And then, of course, the best quarterback in this division is Josh Allen, and that's because they swept the division 2 years ago. Last year, the only team they lost to was the Patriots in a windstorm in Buffalo, New York. So I think Josh Allen has the torch right now, and he's not passing it to any of these quarterbacks anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting with Mac Jones because it's how good is he? And I guess we'll see this year if he takes a step up, and can really continue to help the Patriots win more games, all
Yeah.
that kind of on his own, and we'll see that. My question for you then, obviously with all of the additions, Tua hasn't proven it yet, but are you scared of them at all because of the additions of Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel, what he can do offensively?
Mike McDaniel isn't going to have Debo Samuel
Mm,
on that offense. Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, Tyreek Hill is too small to play that role. He's got the speed,
mm,
but can he withstand the beating that Samuel will take at 215 pounds? I don't see Tyreek Hill going through an entire season, but I am a little scared of Miami because their defense is pretty
mm,
good.
mm-hmm,
Their defense, when the second matchup against the Bills last season, we struggled against them in the first half. It was a dogfight. I think we ended that first half tied. We both had field goals heading into the third quarter. So that first half was certainly a dogfight, but not because of what the Dolphins were capable of doing on offense, but more how their defense was built to withstand the athlete that Josh Allen is. As far as their weapons, man, I don't know. It's gonna take Tua taking that next step next year for those guys to really be successful and to make any noise in the conference. I mean, it's not a pushover conference. This is similar to how the NBA was in the West years ago,
mm-hmm.
and there was so much it was so competitive. This is what the AFC East is, or the AFC is, and I think that only the strong will survive, and the Dolphins have to make it out of the AFC East to be a problem in the conference.
Yeah, and so they're going to have to, adjust with all the pieces. Jalen Waddle's going to be a, good piece there, but yeah, you have to get by the Bills. And then when you look at the rest of the AFC, it's really stacked. I mean, when you look at that, then what team is really the biggest threat to the Bills?
Before Kansas City traded Tyreek Hill, it was Kansas City. I talk to Chiefs fans. I work with Chiefs fans. We were the biggest threat to the Chiefs, and they were the biggest threat to the Bills. But I think the biggest threat to the Bills going into 2022, this is going to sound like a cop out, but it's themselves. They're
Mm-hmm.
favored already to make it to the Super Bowl. They're favored already they're tied with Tampa to win the most games in their win total this season. They're the only threat to the Bills themselves. If last year they didn't win the games that they were supposed to win, and so they suffered. And they ended up going into the postseason as the third seed instead of having a first round bye and hosting a couple of playoff games. So I think if they can win those games like they should, If they can beat the teams on their schedule, if they can sweep their division like they've been doing pretty consistently over the last couple of years, they'll be in great shape to host 2 playoff games, and then they'll find themselves in the Super Bowl.
So the Titans don't worry you at all?
No, the Titans with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. No, they
Yeah.
want to use AJ Brown like he's Debo Samuel, but I've only seen him run one route, and that's the slant. I'm probably being a little biased because he hurt us last year on Monday night once he got going, but he's talented. Yeah, I'm. Uh, what's the running back's name?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is a monster. He hurt us last year too, but they should have won that game in Tennessee too. If Josh Allen doesn't fall down on 4th and 1, when one of the times that Sean McDermott decides to go for it, if Allen doesn't fall down, the Bills win that game, and what a difference that one game can make for them.
And so you look at the season, obviously it is Super Bowl or bust. What would a Super Bowl appearance mean to the Bills? And do they have to win it to kind of even take that, next step, or
Yeah,
would even making it, be something for this team?
a Super Bowl appearance would be nice, right? It would be great for me to sit on the couch and have my season play out as compared to last year for a couple more weeks. That would certainly be nice. But if they don't win it, they're the Bills, right? If
Mhm.
they went 0-4 in the Super Bowls in the 90s, and so if they don't win it, they're just, oh, there goes Buffalo again. They'll be on SNL. They'll be the butt of more jokes. Um, no matter how well Josh Allen plays this season, no matter if they're the top scoring offense in the league, if their point differential is 6,000-0, if they lose a Super Bowl, they'll be frowned upon until they finally bring home the Lombardi.
I think when you look at the matchup, say they do get to the Super Bowl, I think the perfect matchup would have to be the Cowboys, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think the Cowboys will give us an opportunity to exercise some demons. But I think that if you ask the majority of Bills fans, they might say that they want to see Tampa and Tom Brady
Mm.
in a Super Bowl because of what he did to Bills fans for the past 20 years. An opportunity to go to play against him for all the marbles. I think we'll have every single Bills fan locked in. But yeah, I'll take Dallas. I'll take any of the NFC East teams. I don't think that any of them will make it to to the Super Bowl, but yeah, give me one of those teams instead. Sure.
So really, the only NFC team that would worry you is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, Tampa's scary. They're very scary. You see what they had us down in Raymond James Stadium last year. We were, I think it was 24-0. We had no life in that first half. And Tom Brady didn't really even eat us up in the first half. He was the first quarterback last year that threw for 300 yards against that defense, and he needed overtime to do it. So if they're kind of scary. I want to see the Bills play a good team. Of course, there's going to be a good team there in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, there's no other club in the NFC, and I'm trying to think real quickly right now that I'm afraid of seeing. I
Well,
don't.
yeah, I mean, I am a Bears fan, but I live here in Wisconsin, so everyone's still high on the Packers because they have Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not seeing it with the rest of the team, not having Devontae Adams. Just because you have Aaron Rodgers doesn't. I mean, that shouldn't scare you. I mean, you do have Tampa Bay. Really, trying to think. I am on the side of I think Jalen Hurts is going to ball out this year. Now I don't know wins and losses, but I like what with Devontae Smith, and if they add another receiver in the draft, I like what Jalen Hurts is going to do in that offense. Now I don't think they're going to do much in the playoffs, but I think he's going to have a great season.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I root for Jalen Hurts. I hope he does play really well. They have the division to make noise in.
Mhm.
I think so. And with him at the quarterback position, I think they can win 9 games. I think 9 games would be a safe number for Philly. But as we were just talking here, I am thinking about Dallas more seriously than I was maybe just a few moments ago in that Super Bowl round because of the weapons that they have, because of what Dak can do with the ball. I'm not worried about Zeke at
Mhm.
all, but he can make some noise out of the backfield, certainly. Their defense with Micah Parsons is
Mhm.
not bad. Diggs at corner. I mean, if Dallas can get there, I think I think they will be a pretty tough matchup too.
Hey, that would be a Diggs brother Super Bowl.
That's right. That's right.
Although I just do not know why Dallas hangs on to Mike McCarthy. As a Bears fan, I was not very happy they got rid of him. He just horrible game manager. He's in that old school, and that's the one thing I wouldn't trust him to get there. But I mean, if they do, yeah, I mean that would be tough with their weapons.
Yeah, their matchups can be deadly. I watched them go into overtime against New England last year, and I only remember that game because we were betting on it.
Mhm.
And CeeDee Lamb catches the game winner to bring it home, and luckily for me, we won big that day. But that's the only reason I remember it. But yeah, with those weapons, like I said, with what Dak can do at that position, he's very talented. He earned his contract, I think, and they got rid of Amari Cooper though. I I don't know if that was a good move. They might have been able to restructure him, maybe even redo his deal, tear it up, and pay him a little less money. I don't know. I think that they had more. They only got back like a fifth or something really light for a player of a Cooper's caliber. But I'm not worried about Dallas. I'm not worried about any team in the NFC besides the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the only reason I'm worried about them is because Brady's at quarterback.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you look at teams that have a quarterback that's done it before, I mean,
Yeah.
that's, definitely something to watch out for. And now that Joe Burrow has proven to be that guy as well, I mean, does he scare you at all? Like if they would meet up into the playoffs now?
Uh, Not as much as Tom Brady, for sure. Yeah, I've always liked Joe Burrow since he was at Ohio State, right before he was beaten out by Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. But Joe Burrow is extremely talented. He has Chase, but I don't see Chase doing to Trey White what he's done to
Mm.
these other corners. I think when we talk about these quarterbacks, it really boils down to the matchups. And Buffalo's defense is going to be good again. They finished the season number one in scoring defense. I don't see why with the players that they're bringing back and the addition of Von Miller, I don't see why they can't continue their ascent and remain at the top. And no other quarterback other than Tom Brady, not even Patrick Mahomes, scares me versus the Bills this season.
Yeah, that is great. Well, talking about quarterbacks, and as a Bears fan, um, with Mitchell Trubisky, you had a chance to, see him, for this year, and we'll
Mhm.
see how he does in Pittsburgh. And really, I believe, that's probably the best spot for him if, because in Chicago, he just didn't have the confidence, with the coach, and it just was not a good match all around. But
Yeah.
if there is a coach that's going to that's been there before, that's going to be able to give that confidence to a quarterback that needs it, Mike Tomlin really is it, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Never had a losing season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin can make it work. He whatever you give him, I think he's gonna make it work. But I like Mitch Trubisky. I
Mm.
don't know if you remember, but last preseason, the Bills came into Chicago
Oh,
and Mitch was dealing that day. I was extremely impressed with him. I wrote about him that he just couldn't miss.
See that's the problem I think that us Bears fans have had with him, and a lot of it was on the coaching, most definitely. But the problem with him is he can do it, just not when it matters, right?
I remember watching Mitch play the Eagles in a postseason game, and Do you remember what year that was? Being a Bears
The
fan,
double doink.
he was deadly accurate. Who did the double doink? The Bears.
Oh yeah, that's when we
You
lost it.
should have won that game
Yeah.
because of Mitch Trubisky. I believe that he was
Mm.
deadly accurate. A lot of the throws that he was making. I was like, oh, why can't the Bills find a quarterback like this? Like Mitch Trubisky was. I was impressed with him with at that game. And you're right. Some of the coaching decisions, the coaching moves, the time management. I just I don't know, man. I think it was time for a reset. I think Mitch deserved a change of scenery, and I think he got that with Buffalo and Josh Allen.
And as far as what do you think he really took from Josh Allen this year? I mean, was it just learning confidence, or what did he really take from Josh Allen that he's going to take to Pittsburgh? Do you think?
If he took anything from Josh Allen, it was Josh Allen's approach,
Mm.
because Josh Allen didn't come in the league extremely highly touted. He was drafted high because of his physical traits, because he had a big arm, because he was a big guy. We weren't even Bills fans weren't even aware that he could run as well as he could until we saw him do it in games. So over the course of those years up until now, Josh Allen has worked on his game with Palmer in the offseason. And you know what they did 2 years ago? Davis Webb, who was a backup quarterback on Buffalo, he organized a um, a workout for the players down in Florida. And just this past weekend, I heard Mitch Trubisky doing the same thing. So I think that his approach to the game, getting better, putting the work in, not saying he wasn't doing it before, but if you can see somebody like Josh Allen do it, it makes it a lot more realistic and believable. If you put the work in, you can achieve similar success.
Yeah, I mean, listening to Chicago radio, the fear is now that he will go to the Steelers and just ball out and really kind of become what we thought he was going to be. And so it's kind of gone back and forth. Was it him? Was it coaching? Um, you know, as a realistic Bears fan, I'm rooting for him. If I mean, it'd be great if he does well. We'll see if he can. But I'm happy that we've got Fields. There just seems to be more upside to Fields at this point. And when you look at some of the quarterbacks in the draft, obviously the Bills are not going to be there to take any. I mean, are there any quarterbacks that maybe remind you of a little bit of Josh Allen?
Uh, no one other than Malik Willis from Liberty. I mean, I was watching his pro day, and his ball placement was there a lot better than Josh Allen's was at that point of his career. He's got an extremely strong arm. We seen him roll out to his left and just drop a dime like 65 yards down the field. That's the type of talent that'll get you drafted really high in this league. Other than that, I'm not really a draft guru. Like the draft doesn't really excite me as much as it does other people. But
Mhm.
if I had to pick anybody else that reminds me of Allen, it would have to be Malik Willis and his skill and his physical traits.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because, leading up to the draft, there's so many mock drafts and I don't really follow them either because you just never know. Only the teams
Right.
know.
Right.
And a lot of it, could be smoke and mirrors as well to say, well, we're not going to pick them. But when there's a run, when there's a run on wide receivers, someone's going to panic and say, well, we have to get this guy or that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when the draft is done, I mean, no matter who they pick, will you be, kind of okay with that, and just kind of, trusting that they're gonna, they've made the right pick?
Well, I think that the Bills need two positions badly. They need corner and they need wide receiver. If they don't take either of those positions, I'll be very upset, along with the entire Western New York for that decision. But other than that, like I'm saying, I don't care if they draft four corners and four wide receivers. I mean, that's the position where you have to continue retooling those weapons for a quarterback like Josh Allen. And you also need to be able to defend those guys on other teams in this league today. So if the Bills don't take a corner or a wide receiver, I'll be upset. Other than that, I really only see them coming out of four players. That's coming out of this draft with four players, even with all the picks that they have, because eight more players aren't going to make this roster.
Well, this has been fantastic. Obviously, we'll kind of see what does happen in the draft, and a lot to come still kind of with the offseason. But it really is an exciting time for the Bills. I mean, it just really seems to be, I don't know if the start of a golden era, or, I mean, when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, I mean, there has to be excitement, all around.
Yeah, I think I've been having a great time this evening as well. I appreciate you for having me. Uh, Yeah, that's what I tell my friends. I tell them that the silver lining, even though we lost to Kansas City, is that we have Josh Allen on our football team, and I think that means we're going to win the division until we don't, until we lose Allen or for whatever reason. But yeah, with a guy like Allen, I think the sky's the limit, and if he can continue on his ascent, the Bills will be a tough team to play week in and week out for the very near future.
Now, does Bill Belichick, I guess, bother you at all? Obviously, he is, one of the best coaches of all time, if not the best. I mean, he's proven that he can, scheme against the Bills. I mean, would he bother you at all, kind of going forward?
I was afraid of Belichick. I was afraid of him. I was afraid of his aura. This is Bill Belichick. I was afraid of his resume, what I've seen him do to quarterbacks. But it's been a few games now where I've seen Josh Allen dominate New England. I I've seen him dominate him. Even in 2019, when they went to New England to play that game, I think it was a Saturday night. When they went to go play that game in New England in 2019, Allen had a day. They didn't come out with the win, but Allen had a day. 2020, they beat the Patriots twice, no problem. 21, they only lost because of the windstorm.
Mhm.
And then they played three times. And then in the playoffs, seven straight touchdown drives that to Bill Belichick, I mean, yeah, we don't expect to see stuff like that. But when you do see it against somebody of Bill Belichick's caliber, you know that the rest of the teams in the division are going to have a problem with somebody like Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, rarely do you, I mean, kind of look back at, a team that didn't make the Super Bowl, but in the playoffs that really made several statements. That had to be a statement right there. What they did against Kansas City was a statement as well. So it just really seems like they just need to finish the sentence, finish the paragraph with the Super Bowl.
That's really it, man. That's really it. I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, the fans are just going to be hungrier because we know that we got Allen on this long term contract, Diggs on this long term contract. The quarterbacks, all we're hoping for as Bills fans is that these quarterbacks in the division play just well enough where they're not replaced by somebody else who's going to be more of a
Mhm.
problem. So, yeah, man, as long as we got Josh Allen, we'll be fine. And the sky's the limit. And if he can play well this season, he'll win the NFL MVP and bring home the Super Bowl trophy.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Michael. Where can everyone find you again?
You can find me on Twitter at Koonce_football. That's at KOONCE_football. I am also the host of the Notebook Podcast. You can find that wherever your podcasts are available. And you can find my work on BuffalowDown.com. I have an author's page. I do tons of writing for them. And this off season, I'm putting together a piece of the 20 best Bills teams in franchise history. So it's going to be like a countdown from 20 to 1 of all the teams that I think deserve to be on this list.
Love it. Definitely going to be following that. I mean, it takes me back to my youth in the 90s.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thanks again, Michael. And once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Buffalo Bills. And go Bills. We're going to connect again.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me, man. Appreciate your time.